If I look back over the span of that time, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Okay, that's Portland architect John Holmes. He's worked in the area's housing market for about 30 years. He understands that right now Portland needs affordable housing. We hear it time and time again from city, county, and state leaders. Well, it has become a focus for Holmes and his team at Guna Collaborative. Now, on the walls of the firm are pictures of some of the current projects, including 5 affordable housing complexes, 3 of them in Northwest Portland. If all goes to plan, they'll tear down this building off 25th Avenue and Vaughn Street and build an apartment complex, 8 stories tall with 72 units. The city is currently reviewing it for a permit. John is hoping to begin construction in January, but he says all the city regulations are proving to be time-consuming, difficult, and expensive.
I think the city of Portland, there's a tendency, especially within the building department, in BDS, to and also PBOT, to focus on the frosting and forget about the cake. You know, there's a kind of like the cake is molding, and they're really focused on the frosting, and the frosting is very expensive.
And what do you mean by the frosting?
I mean things like, you know, bike parking. I think one of the overarching frosting pieces to the policy that we have here in this city is a huge emphasis on bikes and basically wanting to get rid of the car. That is paramount in their mind. And I think it's misguided. I think it is part of the frosting. It's not part of the basic issues of providing shelter and safety for people.
Okay, in addition to bike parking, each building is required to have a large room for bike storage, limiting space for tenants. Another requirement is having a loading dock for people to move their things in. John says they also have to pay for a city study to make sure that the loading dock doesn't upset traffic.
To prove that it's not a problem somehow. I don't know how that makes any sense. And that costs $10,000. Then we had to do what's called a zoning confirmation letter. That was $1,400. The permit fees, once we went in, were $68,000. And the total fee, once we're done, will be $121,000.
It doesn't feel like it's any incentive to want to do this type of work.
Well, what happens is, and that's why not a lot is happening.
John showed us this wall inside his firm. Taped to it are all the comments from the city on what his team needs to change in their plans for that affordable housing project on 25th and Vaughn. Everything from moving power lines to additional landscaping.
Just our comment sheet back from the city. These are all the comments that came back. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So the complexity, the zoning code is that thick now. And when I started working, it was that thick. Every year they add another 100 pages to it.
In all, if and when the affordable housing on 25th and Vaughn is complete, John estimates it costing somewhere around $15 million. And at the current pace, it is a long way from being done.
The complexity of working through the system has gotten to the point where there's not that many contractors who are qualified to get through that process.
Now, the complexity of it all certainly has an impact. Back in 2023, the Portland Bureau of Development had to cut 72 jobs because they were making less money from permitting fees because fewer people were looking to build in Portland. Builders did not abandon Portland solely because of the permitting process, but it certainly doesn't make things easier. Now, in an effort to streamline the process, last year, the city consolidated 5 bureaus into one, now called Portland Permitting and Development. A spokesperson for that department said no one was available to talk with us on camera, but sent a statement. It says in part, the City of Portland is committed to our ongoing efforts to improve the building permit process. We're improving our review times and proposing policy changes to make it easier to get a permit issued. We remain committed to continuous improvement, and we rely on our customers to be active partners in this effort.
They're doing their best, you know. They're doing their best, but they're following the rules. They don't make the policy. They have to implement the policy. And it's so complicated. You know, it's like the average, I think the average time to get a permit now, once you go in, is 300 days.
This past spring, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson and Governor Tina Kotek announced a plan to jumpstart housing production in Portland, waiving what's called system development charges for 3 years until 5,000 new housing units are built. Now, those are fees the city collects from developers to cover the cost of connecting new builds to city infrastructure, think water and sewer. These fees can sometimes cost developers as much as $20,000 per unit. Here's the mayor and governor announcing this change back in May.
Too many projects stall because of costs. Waiving SDCs can cut thousands of dollars the cost of building a home.
This temporary waiver of system development charges is a strategic way to say we are open for business, that we need that help with the private sector to get these projects to pencil and get to construction.
That fee waiver applies to new housing units for which permits are issued between August 15th of this year and September of 2028. The spokesperson for Portland Permitting and Development says in the wake of that announcement, they've heard from developers now wanting to move forward on projects that had been paused, including a 150-plus unit building on the Central East Side. But beyond the fees and regulations, architects like Holmes also run into issues with how their affordable housing projects impact the surrounding neighborhood.
People get nervous. There's a lot of NIMBYism, especially, well, in this neighborhood, but I think most neighborhoods, there's like, I don't want that in my neighborhood. I don't want these people in my neighborhood. There's a kind of a discriminatory quality to poor people.
John says he presented plans for his affordable housing projects to the Northwest District Association, a group that prominently opposed the new homeless shelter in that part of town that opened last week. Well, the president of the association told me in regards to Holmes' plans, the projects have been well received by the neighborhood association. The neighborhood is a champion of thoughtful and well-planned housing development, though resoundingly rejects dangerous, short-term, short-sighted, and unproven projects that threaten to destabilize our community. Okay, now it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think about certain steps the city requires when it comes to building in Portland? Obviously, we did not touch on everything the permitting process includes, but share your thoughts on some of the challenges we did tell you about. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090.